right. Hi, everybody. David Fogel back with you, CEO of the Symphonina Foundation, back with another Symphonina Foundation podcast. And I'm joined today by the extraordinary pianist, Michael Noble. Michael, how are you?
Doing great. Thanks for having me, David.
It's our pleasure, Michael, and I appreciate it. I was saying with you before we got started, you had your piano debut performance at 6 years old, and I'm thinking, I just gave a lesson to a 6-year-old, and they're not ready. I just, they might be ready in a little bit, but they're not ready today. So for you to be ready at 6, let's start at the beginning. How did you get started on the piano? Then we can get to be how you got so good at it.
So I was probably about 3 or 4 when my mom noticed me listening to cassette tapes a lot and kind of running around with those, and I think trying to bang out some tunes on the piano with those. And then she's like, let's get him started with some group lessons, because I was so young. I think I was like 3.5 or 4. It kind of like introduced me to music, but I don't think it was clicking. I think that I needed something more individualized. So we got me started with a teacher in Redlands, California. I'm from Moreno Valley, California, Inland Empire. Yeah, kind of near Palm Springs.
Yeah.
And I took to it quite well. It was Suzuki method, and I had a good ear. So I was playing a lot of stuff by ear, and that's what they want in that method. Just listening constantly to what was then the cassette tapes of the Suzuki method in the car. And, that's how I was able to, within a 1.5 years or so, play my first book. In Suzuki, you play each book memorized as a recital.
Oh, interesting. Okay. So, I didn't know that. My dad's mom taught me to play, and I did start when I was 5. I don't know if I debuted at all when I was 6. I'm not sure, but we didn't have anything like a Suzuki, whatever. I just followed whatever she gave me. So I'm not really into piano teaching these days. And I guess I do help people as they ask for it, but it's not something I do for a living or anything. But in terms of different methods, Suzuki method, are there alternatives to it? What do you teach piano now? What kind of thing do you, if we jump maybe to the end, what are you doing in your teaching methods? Does it reify that, or does it do something else?
So I have not gotten basically as certified in Suzuki teaching. So I don't teach, the kind of oral method of that necessarily. I think something that it was great for me. I don't think it's great for everyone necessarily. And I think that reading is really important. I think that was something that took me longer because of the method. And I was so able and competent to play just by ear that I kind of got lazy with the reading later. And as things get more complex, that gets harder. Of course, I caught up. It'd be fun to just kind of not have to catch up, I feel. So right. I teach out of this. A lot of people now, my colleagues included, teach out of Faber, the Faber method. Nancy and Randall Faber have created this method book. I don't think it was out when I was younger. It's probably around 20 years old, maybe a little over that. I also, when I was growing up, also my teacher had me play with the Alfred's method as well, which you're probably maybe familiar with. I'm not sure.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. So that one was that was supposed to help you with reading. You didn't listen to those as much, but they were much simpler pieces. Suzuki starts you by the end of the first book, you're playing minuets and musettes and stuff like that. So repertoire, common practice period repertoire. So I think mostly I'm using Faber at this point. I do start to move children and young adults into real repertoire like Bach, Beethoven, Chopin, if they, are actually developing quickly. And by the end of the 3rd Faber books or the 4th books, I basically start to supplement and I move them out, because I think that method for me it doesn't advance quickly enough after that.
Okay. All right. I guess as you're saying, if I can put words in your mouth a little bit, you can check me. It serves its purpose for that amount of time, and then you kind of transition to something new.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Well, for you went through high school, you went to college, you went all the way to getting a doctorate in piano performance at Yale, if I have that correct.
Yes.
So why did you choose Yale? First of all, I know great musicians there. We've interviewed a few now, gone to Yale Music, but what was it for you?
I mean, I only applied to 3 places for my master's. It was Amsterdam, Juilliard, and Yale. I'd gotten into Amsterdam already. That was kind of, for me, a backup. I thought, okay, I kind of knew the teacher through a friend, and it was going to be very cheap compared to the US to go there. So that was one thing as well. I was considering money at that point, since my parents weren't going to be helping out with the postgraduate degrees. I really wanted to study with Frankel for a long time. Peter Frankel was my primary teacher there. And I went and just felt like I have nothing to lose. I'm not gonna, it's a crapshoot. I don't know if I'm gonna get in. So I applied. I had a great audition. I mean, because I wasn't really nervous, they had me do some sight reading. They had me do some, can you play a Schubert song off the top of your head? Can you play a Brahms symphony, a theme from a Brahms symphony? They like to do these things at the end of the audition, which I found out later don't really matter. But when you are auditioning, you think they matter a lot. They kind of just do it for fun. And 3 days later, Berman, or 4 days later, Professor Boris Berman emailed me saying I was in, and they wanted to know what my choice would be because they had a lot of people that they had waitlisted. So yeah, I loved the campus. I mean, it was really just a beautiful place. And I think I didn't think I wanted the kind of collegial experience again after being at Eastman and University of Rochester. But Yale is just really gorgeous, and I fell in love with it. During the audition, not too much because I didn't know if I would get in, but then afterwards I was like, okay, definitely want to do this. So I said yes. And of course it's free. They pay you a stipend to go. That doesn't hurt at all.
Right.
So,
right. How long did it take you to finish your DMA?
So the master's was 2 years, and then I got into the DMA following that. And that was 2 years in residence. So after you finish the residence, which is basically all the academic stuff, 2 recitals, oral exams, the first oral exams, your comprehensives, and your doctoral thesis, they require that you leave for 3 to 5 years called the post-residency and go create a portfolio of performances and projects. So I was lucky to get a grant to Belgium through the Belgian American Educational Foundation and moved to Ghent and studied with Don van de Walle there, who's an expert in Frederick Rzewski's music, among other composers, but very much contemporary music. And since at that point I'd become very focused on the music of Frederick Rzewski, that was a perfect fit. And so that's how I began post-residency, started traveling a lot, performing, and passed the portfolio and passed the doctorate. Afterwards, you have to come back, do a recital, and your final oral exams, which are the most nerve-wracking.
That's very involved.
A big committee. Yeah. So it was 5 year, total 7 years, I guess, really. I took a little longer. I had to add some stuff to my portfolio at one point, but I loved being kind of professional, even though I wasn't done with it yet.
I understand. Yeah. So you're just still doing performances as you're teaching now too. What's your practice routine look like as you're preparing for a performance?
It's kind of any time I can get away from teaching or commuting, or I guess just, living in DC is kind of devoted to very methodical practice. I don't have as much time as I used to. I mean, no one does once you enter the workforce. So I use everything very efficiently. If it's 20 minutes, I can do something in that 20 minutes. I just get right down to it. I like to time myself. So 30 minutes, maybe if I have the time, 30 minutes, I'm going to do something in a piece that I need to focus on.
Okay.
And then in the next 30 minutes, if I didn't get that done, maybe I do a little bit more with that I haven't finished, or I move on to something different. So just very kind of methodical planning of things. I usually play some repertoire that I already know, some stuff that I like to try out, to do new stuff. A lot of pianists, I think, can fall into the trap of just playing the same program they played when they were a doctoral student or something. And it's like, that's great, and you're really good at it. But for me, that's not interesting enough.
Sure. I would have sympathy to that point of view. When you're practicing like that, are you focusing then on the passages in the piece specifically, or are you focusing, in addition to that, maybe, are you also bringing in just general technique that you could apply anywhere that might be things that you need to brush up on or feel like you want to have more confidence in?
Yeah, that's, I was kind of forced to the latter point, forced to do that a bit this year because a professor at Georgetown, whom I know quite well, I've played there a few times, had me come and do 7 Chopin etudes. And I was like, okay, this is a great opportunity to brush up on some things that I'm going to play etudes and learn a few etudes that I don't know that will help me with certain, qualities that I think maybe have gotten a little diminished, or maybe I was never as good as I wanted to be at. So I think that was something that really did that. Mostly I'm focusing on the pieces themselves. And luckily, a lot of that stuff can transfer to different pieces, different repertoire. The techniques that are used are quite similar in a lot of things.
Right. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So as long as there's a good transfer, that I think that's great.
Yeah, there's a good chance.
You had a debut album just not too long ago in 2022, coming out of COVID, and then a follow-up album titled Ascension, which we joked about a little bit. We had an album called Ascension this year too. No relationship, but it's a great title.
Yeah,
I appreciate that. What do you
it
have
is.
another? Yeah, it is a good title. Do you have
Yeah.
another album coming out for next year? What are your plans?
Yeah, I do. So this next album, I haven't really come up with a title yet, but it's going to be a little more
Don't tell
traditional.
us
My first,
when you know. I don't want to. Well, there's no chance we can copy you again that way. So don't tell us.
yeah, exactly,
All right.
exactly.
Yeah,
Um,
tell us about it. Yeah.
it's an album featuring the Catalan Spanish composer Federico Mompou
Hmm.
and the French composer Francis Poulenc. So both span a lot of the 20th century, especially early 20th century for Poulenc, who died, I believe, 1963 or 64,
Okay.
and Mompou died in 1987. So most of their work's written in that early to mid 20th century. And I find their styles very similar. Mompou studied at the Paris Conservatoire at one point and was very influenced by French music. Wrote mostly miniatures, as did Poulenc for piano, at least. So I found their tonal language to just be very similar. I've always loved Poulenc. I didn't know much about Mompou until a few years ago, and then kind of fell in love with his works, especially one kind of the centerpiece of the album is variations on a theme of Chopin by Mompou, which is his A major prelude. And then he takes that and does 12 variations on that, which are really amazing. I would encourage anyone to listen to that work because I think it needs to be heard more. Trifonov, the great pianist, recorded it a few years ago, and I really love his recording. So that was kind of my inspiration. Is I thought this composer sounds a lot like Ravel, a lot like Poulenc, a lot like Albeniz, but he's unique, and so I kind of wanted to. I thought Poulenc was just kind of the greatest, maybe, person to pair him with. And then it's also going to feature, some works, some transcriptions of Edith Piaf, because one of the novelettes by Poulenc is called Hommage à Edith Piaf. So I wanted to include something by her in there, and then some of my own improvisations as well. And I think I'm going to transcribe something by Bill Evans as well, because that goes really kind of fits in with this jazzy early 20th century atmosphere.
Did you do a lot of jazz piano in addition to classical piano when you were growing up and then in your college days, or did you just have to focus like a laser, as they say?
Yeah, I focused on classical only. I mean, I dabble and I can improvise and I have a good ear, which is very helpful. And I wish, at this point, I still want to actually develop that a lot more. I think when I lived in New York for a few years, it was like, oh, it'd be fun to go do this other lifestyle. But, everyone's so good at what they do. Everyone's so specialized. It's like that they're the jazz pianists, they're the classical pianists. There's some that can do both, but I think, and I'd like to be one that can do that. So I that's something I really do want to develop maybe in 2026 more, is like the improvisation, just my harmonic palette.
Yeah, great. How much experience do you have playing with symphony orchestra, piano concertos, things like that?
I have a decent amount. My first experience was when I went to a boarding arts high school in California called Idyllwild Arts Academy, and I won the concerto competition there. Yeah, it's up in the San Jacinto Mountains.
Not
Beautiful,
far from
beautiful.
from 2 hours from us. Yeah.
Oh, great. Yeah. And I won the concerto competition my junior year. So senior year, I got to play the Chopin E minor concerto with the students there a few times. It was nice that it was like I think it was 3 concerts, which is great because you really get into that. You just get better each time is what I felt.
Yeah.
And then I played with this Monterey Symphony up in Northern California, which was really fun. Did the Dvorak with them. I've played with the Tulsa Symphony. I went back to Idyllwild and played with the Alumni Orchestra and I debuted there, or with the first concert in their new hall that they had in 2016. So those have been my major.
Very nice. Do you approach playing a concerto kind of performance with a symphony orchestra differently than you would if it was a solo piano performance where it's just you on the stage, or is it the same prep?
I think it's even more intense because I think you need to know the orchestra part like the back of your hand. And you don't, for chamber, sure, a little bit, you've got the score there with you, but you could do that. But there's something that's just much more intense, I think, about a symphony orchestra, knowing that it's just so intense, the entire thing, and so much music that you really do need to know your entrances, like you could wake up at 3 a.m. and do it. So I think there's something, you're kind of learning 2 parts in a way. And you do need to be rehearsing, hopefully with another pianist in order to hear that other part a lot.
Ah, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, so I do think that requires a more intense preparation, just because it's more.
Okay, and that preparation, what is your time frame for starting when you say, okay, I'm going to have a performance, let's say in January of next year, you have a couple coming up. I don't know if they're with orchestra, but in any event, in Washington and New York, I saw on your calendar and late in the month. How far in advance of that do you start prepping for that performance?
So this one is going to have pieces by Poulenc and Montpu primarily. So I pretty much know everything already.
Hmm.
So I guess I would say I started preparations for programs in general for the next season in February, March of this year.
Hmm.
So that's nice. Sometimes I'm not always consistent. Sometimes I'm like, I need to do this in a month because I really want to put it on here, or I've told somebody this or that. So sometimes it's like this is the tryout concert and this is going to be the first, like one piece maybe. But you should not have a whole program, I think. And for me, like that's entirely new anymore. I mean, that was what we did in school, and it was so difficult, but you had the time to practice. And that you're supposed to do that each year, that's how you develop a repertoire. Now you can kind of stagger, which I think is that's my process. That's my tactic
Yeah,
for
yeah, yeah.
just like
Makes
walking
total
on
sense.
eggshells with
Yeah,
everything.
yeah, exactly. So,
Yeah.
do you find yourself with the same level, whatever that level was? It might not have been very high, but the same level of anxiety doing a performance now. One could say eagerness instead of anxiety, but
Mhm.
whatever
Mhm.
that feeling is about doing it, that gets you going, gets the adrenaline going. Now, as you did when you were in college doing those elaborate demonstrations for other people for their approval, or what's it like for
I
you?
think it's interesting. I think the anxiety is a lot less a lot of the time. I mean, it's still there. I'm a perfectionist for myself. I
Yeah,
don't care if it's a community event that's on a upright
yeah, yeah.
in a hall, in a barely a convention room or something, which I mean, I don't do that much, but I mean, occasionally it's still like I want to hold myself to the highest standards because you don't know who's going to be there and you always want to present your best self.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think, those final recitals are always so intense. You don't want to mess it up. Your doctoral recital where you've come back after being in Europe and abroad and all this stuff. And this is it. I think there's just so much pressure on something that can be so difficult sometimes it just might not be your day.
That's true, right?
It's like auditions are so intense too. Auditions are, in a way I thought auditions were easier because they're so short. So you
Yeah,
kind of just get the beginning of a piece really well and like you're going to be probably okay
yeah,
with everything.
yeah.
But yeah, I think now that it's not a grade like, oh, you're getting through something, it's really like now you're producing art, and that's really much more important than any of the stuff they're grading you on in schools.
Yeah, it makes total
So
sense. What's the best piano you've ever played on, or your favorite piano?
um in Europe, when I lived in Ghent, I played on this series there a few years, and it usually was a Fazioli. And I also played in the Fazioli like showroom multiple times there
Uh huh.
in Ghent, Belgium of all. It's kind of random, but they have a lot of Faziolis there.
Yeah.
And I think those were some of the best pianos. I love Fazioli.
I guess I shouldn't ask you, but here I am. What's the worst piano you've ever played on in a professional
The
setting?
worst piano I ever played.
Yeah.
Huh,
Not
that's
like not
interesting.
like some Blair piano. It's something where somebody asks you just to sit down and play. But
I mean, I've never on like a real concert, say, like not like some I played at like retirement communities and stuff
yeah,
or
sure,
schools, and it's like, okay, this is like firewood. But
of course, yeah,
I think, I can't really remember anything that was just horrific, which is
wonderful.
good. Yeah. And nothing stood out. Like, no, one of my teachers was like, oh, I played at a place and the pedal fell off. Like, I was
Yeah,
like, wow.
yeah,
So he's like, you have to be prepared for anything. You have to keep playing. So
yeah, yeah, yeah. I played a place at a retirement home once where the piano was perfect tune. They did me a favor tuning it ahead of time, but none of the pedals
okay.
worked.
Yeah.
None of the pedals worked.
Yeah, that's
Like, okay,
really hard.
uh,
I played on some keyboards like for a wedding when I was in grad school, I think, and they just were like, yeah, we don't have a pedal.
yeah,
And I was like, okay, like that's gonna, like, with all the wedding music, like a lot of this requires, I think it's just not gonna sound very good.
yeah,
But
yeah. We muddle through somehow, as they say at this holiday time.
exactly.
Michael, if people want to
Yeah.
get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that?
I'd say two ways: through my website, michaelnoble.net. There's a contact page on that, and it'll go to my email. The
Hmm.
other way is if you're on Instagram, Michael the Noble is my handle. You
Nice.
can send me a message there and check out some of my stuff on there as well.
Yeah, and you've got your concert calendar, I should say, on your website, I believe.
I do,
So
yeah.
if
So a
people
few
want to
things
keep in
coming up,
touch
like you
with you,
said.
yeah. So give us the dates on your Washington D.C. and New York concerts before we go.
Yes, so Washington, D.C., January 20th. It's a lunchtime concert, 12:10 p.m. at Church of the Epiphany, which is near the White House.
Hmm.
And that's donation only. And then the one in New York, January 25th at 3:30 p.m. It's the series Music on Madison. It's on the Upper East Side. You can check the exact location on my website. And yeah, that one is just a solo concert with intermission, quite a 80-minute program. The DC concert is with a cellist. So
wonderful. Wonderful. Well,
yeah.
we'll look forward to hearing how it all went. You can come maybe get some video to us. We'll be happy to promote that. And we'll listen to some more of your great playing on the way out here. And Michael, if there's anything we can do at the Symphonina Foundation to be of help, you just let us know.
Thank you so much, David.